they think that they're the only ones that are experiencing that feeling, when in fact, a majority of individuals experience it to some degree or another.
Hey there, I'm Krista Vance, entrepreneur and operations leader.
And I'm Matt Vance, tech founder and author of The Review Cycle. This is The Culture Prophet.
We explore how strong workplace culture drives retention, reputation, and real business performance.
We talk with HR leaders, executives, and founders building people-first companies that actually win.
Production of The Culture Prophet is sponsored by Mobrium, the original employer reputation platform.
Mobrium helps employers take control of how their company shows up in AI search and on review platforms like Glassdoor and Indeed, turning employee feedback into stronger reputation, better hiring, and healthier culture.
Learn more at mobrium.com. Welcome back to the show, everyone. If you've ever been in a room and thought to yourself, I think they hired the wrong person, then this is the podcast for you today, because we're going to be diving in with our expert, Dr. Angela Trego, all about getting that self-confidence and avoiding that imposter syndrome. So welcome, Angela. We're so excited to have you today.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Angela. And for everyone listening, we'd love you to hear a little bit more about her. So Dr. Angela Trego is a rocket scientist turned confidence and communication expert, and is a #1 best-selling author of the book Squashing the Imposter Syndrome. I have to say, I want to stop right there for a sec, because this is one of the most interesting intros I've ever heard for someone, which is super cool.
Squashing, sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And Angela worked at she was a Fortune 500 engineering leader, turned award-winning keynote speaker and educator. She has trained thousands of professionals across 6 continents to strengthen confidence as a skill so they can communicate more effectively, lead more boldly, and contribute at their full potential. She's done all sorts of different programs around these different practices, and you can learn more at angelatrego.com. So we'll put that link in the show notes for you.
And I just want to say, I met Angela at the Utah Business 30 Women to Watch, and she is incredible and has this incredible personality, so lively. I mean, she was on the red carpet photo doing something like crazy. And so she really has put that confidence and squashing the imposter syndrome to use. And so I personally would love to learn from her today.
Oh, you guys are kind. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here and excited to see how we can help your viewers.
Definitely. And let's just start off the bat with, you are a rocket scientist, but right now your focus is people leader. How did you go from that to, I will say, most engineers I know, they're not people. So how did you get to that point?
Yeah, most are not. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I never set out to leave engineering. In many ways, engineering led me to where I'm at today. I spent more than 2 decades working for the Boeing company, ATK, doing rocket technologies, cool things. I moved into medical device world. I did enjoy solving the technical problems and developing new technologies. But as my career progressed, I realized there were a couple other things that captured my attention. And I realized what truly energized me was not the problem that I was working on to solve. It was watching the people around me grow. And especially as I moved into management and into teaching, I had this aha moment that I enjoy developing people more than things. I became increasingly drawn to understanding what separates those who contribute fully and those who hold themselves back, and why that's occurring and how to help those individuals. I also noticed that technical expertise wasn't necessarily the biggest predictor of success. Again and again, I was watching these highly capable, very smart individuals, and they were holding themselves back. They had the knowledge, they had the credentials, but they hesitated speaking up. They hesitated taking that risk to learn something new, to take on that new project. And I experienced this myself. I had struggles with this. And so that's really one of the big foundations for me of how I moved into being a people leader, was just seeing these experiences and having this passion of how can I help these individuals and organizations build that confidence as a skill so that people can contribute at their full potential.
Right.
Honestly, I feel like this could apply to so many different industries where you have someone who, they provide a service or they produce a product and they're really passionate about that, but nothing gets done without the human touch point at some stage along the way. And so the people doing the work, that's the true differentiator. And I think that's so cool that you made that, you had that aha moment and made the change, and now you are where you are. It's very impressive.
Yeah, and we want to hear about your book and what led you to write that. You kind of told me earlier what your personal experience was, and I can relate to that. So tell us about that and tell us about your book.
Yeah, so the book, Squashing the Imposter Syndrome, grew out of both my own personal experience, but also continued conversations that I continued to have over and over again. As I think about my book, I kept having these conversations and I would be talking, and it didn't matter if I was talking with a CEO and some executive, if I was talking with a leader at a community event, a church interaction, my neighbors, parents. I kept hearing again and again, I don't feel qualified. I don't belong here. Everyone else has it figured out, right? And I had those same thoughts myself. But these individuals that were telling me this have the capabilities. They just couldn't see it in themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And, right? So this book, amongst all other things, I want you to, after you read this book, be motivated and hopeful. But what I really want you to do is understand how to squash the imposter syndrome. I've got practical tools, relatable tools that you can immediately use. It's a workbook, it's a reference book. It's going to give them examples and strategies that they can apply right away. I think part of this, bringing this book to light, also comes from the fact that all too often, as I'm having these conversations and they're telling me, right, that I don't belong at the table, they think that they're the only ones that are experiencing that feeling. When in fact, a majority of individuals experience it to some degree or another. And so I want to help normalize the fact that so many people experience imposter syndrome, and there are tools, there are capabilities to overcome imposter syndrome, to gain that confidence. Confidence is not something you're born innately with, typically, but it's something that you can foster and grow. It is a skill that you can build and strengthen with practice.
Yeah, I can attest. I did purchase Angela's I purchased the Kindle version on Amazon, and sometimes I feel like these business books, culture books, they can be a little fluffy, but this one, Squashing the Imposter Syndrome, like she said, it has those practical examples. It's definitely written by a scientist, but it's also relatable and practical and useful. And I'm not done yet, but so far that I can definitely attest to that. So
that's awesome.
I remember one, and I'd love to hear your take on this, and maybe talk to us about some other situations that you've seen people in where they were having this experience, but they didn't know it was imposter syndrome. Sometimes identifying it is the first step to, moving forward. But I remember I was at a previous employer. I was tasked with doing a company culture survey or reporting on a company culture survey in a leadership meeting. But I had volunteered to do that initiative. There wasn't an owner of that project. And so I didn't feel like it was fully my place, that I was just kind of the new guy reporting on this thing that I wanted to help with. And I received feedback after the meeting that it was good content, but that the presentation wasn't very good. And then I remember, fast forward a little bit, I was actually changed to a different position where I was the owner of employee feedback. And then when I had my next presentation, it was quite a bit different because
night and day.
because I knew I was the owner of the thing.
Right.
Instead of just trying to insert myself into that. That was probably for me the biggest moment where I noticed feeling like that.
Quick highlight from today's sponsor, Mobrium.
One feature leaders love about Mobrium is the encrypted anonymous suggestion box.
It gives employees a secure way to share concerns privately, and leaders can reply back while maintaining anonymity.
This gives leaders actionable visibility to issues before they become public reviews or lead to voluntary turnover.
If you want more honest feedback without risking your star ratings, Mobrium makes that possible. Learn more at mobrium.com.
Now back to the episode.
Yeah, and there's so many different situations. My book is written scenario based, looking at, for example, you're the only one in the room, or you do have to give a talk. And those are, I tried to pick broad ranging areas that apply whether you're at home or work. But certainly a lot of times we don't know that we have imposter syndrome, or we don't know that terminology or phrase. I know when I first started experiencing imposter syndrome, I didn't put a name to it until, quite honestly, decades later. It was just that I knew I lacked that confidence, and I was silent and I was quiet as a result.
So tell us about the turning point you had. What helped you? Maybe you didn't identify it specifically as imposter syndrome, but when was it? Was there a specific moment where you were like, you know what? I've got this. I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest misconceptions of lack of confidence and imposter syndrome is that if I have enough achievements, have enough credentials, then I'm finally going to be good. And that's not true, right? It's not the credentials we have. It's not the accolades. It's the internal story we're telling ourselves. I had an advanced degree from a great university, Brigham Young University, and I went and started to work for the Boeing company, Phantom Works, which, by the way, is as cool as it sounds. I got to work on a lot of really cool projects. But I walked into that job and I was the only female out of 200 men in that engineering group.
Wow.
Add to the fact that I was the only, right? Not only was I the only woman, but I was a good 10 to 15 years younger than everybody else in that organization as well.
Oh, wow.
So I immediately had, oh my gosh, they hired the wrong person. They are going to fire me the minute they realize that they hired the wrong person. And I went to work every day for many months with that feeling. Every time my boss would call me, I'm like, oh my gosh, now they finally realized that that they hired the wrong person. I think I lost like years off of my life from that, right? But
oh man.
So as a result, I was only an okay engineer. Very frank and honest about that. I'd sit in the corner. I wouldn't offer any insight, I was a yes woman. I wouldn't volunteer for extra assignments. If I thought of something different than somebody else, I wouldn't ask for it. I just kind of went, I went and I did my work, but I wasn't showing the skills and capabilities that I really had or could do because I lacked that confidence. I had imposter syndrome. But I had a mentor that actually was my PhD advisor and someone that I had continued to talk with. And he really started challenging me to stop dismissing my success of, oh gosh, I am actually going and doing this. And I was always amazed and saying how lucky I was that I was there, or it was just good timing, or it's somebody else's contribution that was occurring there. Instead, he really encouraged me to start looking at my specific skill sets, my decisions I was making, and how those actions led to positive outcomes. And the shift from me thinking, no, I'm not very good at this, and writing down concrete, black and white, this is what I've done, this is my skill, this is my capability, started to turn into something very measurable. And realizing this evidence instead of emotion that I was using. And I remember I was sitting in a supplier meeting and they were talking about a specific aircraft that they were working on. And I looked around the room and I realized, oh my gosh, I know the answer to this question. This is a technical question and I know the answer to this. Wait a minute. I'm the only person in the room that knows the answer to this question, right? And all of a sudden, the light bulb went off and these measurable items, clear evidence that no, I do belong at that table. And that really shifted what I did and my own potential and my group and team's potential. All of a sudden, I became someone that holds patents, has things up in space, asking for more work, doing more things, challenging the status quo. And it really completely changed the trajectory of my own career, but it also really helped my company too, right? And that feels good, and we want that. And that really set a lot of that foundation for what I do today, where figuring out that confidence isn't something we're born with. It's not just luck that a few people get that, but it's something that we can actually deliberately practice and develop.
I think that's amazing. And I think of like different personalities, but I also think about different confidences. Sometimes you have people who are so confident in themselves, or maybe overconfident, that before they even have had time to think for an answer to a question or solving a problem, they're spewing out the information that really isn't, the solution that the problem needs. And so I think in your case, in that scenario, you had the time, thankfully, since no one else was just, regurgitating the information, you had the time to think what that strategic response would be. And I think that is a lesson in and of itself, is just taking a minute to say, what do I have to offer in this discussion? And being okay with it taking a minute. So.
Yeah, definitely. And what you were referencing actually is called the Dunning-Kruger effect, where we have zero skill, but high thoughts of ourselves, right? And the overconfidence factor, which is kind of opposite of imposter syndrome, where we actually have the skills and capabilities, but lack the confidence.
That's so interesting.
Very interesting.
So I love how open you are about your own experiences. And you've kind of said confidence is not a personality trait, it's a skill. So is there a connection between confidence, communication, and the kind of workplace performance that actually moves the needle, in your opinion?
Yes. Confidence. It's the foundation which allows talent to show up. Most organizations spend a significant amount of resources on technical skills, leadership skills. And those investments are really important. I teach some of those myself. But if you don't have the confidence to use those skills, much of your potential remains untapped. I just talking about my Boeing experience. I had the skills. I wasn't using them because I lacked that confidence. And confidence affects whether someone speaks up to an idea, asks a question, volunteers for a challenge, wants to learn a new skill. It all relates to that. As an engineer, I learned that the best solutions come from exploring an entire design space. But if that person, right, if organizations can't do that, and if people are sitting silently and not providing that contrary viewpoint maybe, or that different idea, because they're afraid to speak up, then that person that's holding that perfect solution doesn't allow that problem to be solved.
Yeah.
So it's so important, because that confidence really does affect communication. It influences collaboration, engagement, performance. If people lack that confidence, organizations see their teams hesitating, silence, avoiding missed opportunities. But if they build that confidence and use those skills that they have, then they can come forward, right, contributing to their full potential and willing to take those actions that really create the results that we need to be successful as businessmen.
I have a super quick sports metaphor for those who relate to that side of things. And I shared this with Angela earlier, but playing not to lose is so much more different than playing to win. I'm a tennis player, and when I'm playing not to lose, like whether it's my doubles partner and I'm like, I don't want to let them down, or just like, I can't lose this. I can't lose this, or I'm going to lose my job. I can't lose my job. Then the scenario, the way that I contribute or play or compete is so different than if I'm like, I am going to win this. I am going to show what I'm made of. So that's just something I thought of when we were talking, but
it almost feels like it's imposing a not psychologically safe work environment in your own head to not allow for that confidence of like, you're imposing this.
Yeah, sometimes
tension.
that is workplace imposed. Sometimes it's
yourself. But I think about like the contract that you made, Angela, around overly confidence without the skills, and maybe lacking confidence but high skills. And I've been a team leader as well in the workplace, and I've seen individuals who they're learning actually how to do the work, and so they maybe rightfully so don't have confidence on day one because it's brand new, but then you help them build the confidence along the way. But I've also seen people who they know how to do that thing, but maybe they're not engaged very well, or they feel, like you're saying, held back for various reasons. And both of those are not good. Like, speaking to the CFOs in the room, they're not good for the bottom line. And
Right.
There is a business interest in helping all of your staff across the board, from entry level to executive, to be confident while also caring. Like, we don't want a team full of people who are so confident they're just up in people's faces, But I think, pairing the kind communication, like I'm thinking of Radical Candor, for those of you who have heard of that book. That seems like a perfect pairing with this conversation of being confident and kind as well.
Yeah, 100%. You do have to worry about that whole pride level, right? And forgetting, but really the idea is, if we lack this confidence, then we're not going to get anywhere. And so it is a fine balance between cockiness, right, and confidence. And I'm talking about confidence, not cockiness, most definitely.
100%. So what's one thing someone can do today for our listeners? What can they do to squash their own imposter syndrome?
Yeah, so if you're listening right now and realize, ooh, this is me, first off, you're not alone. Okay, you're not alone, or know somebody who does it, right? I'm sure there's somebody in your team. That's great. Right? Yeah. But the first step is surprisingly simple, but that doesn't necessarily mean super easy. Pause and question the story you're telling yourself. When that voice says, ooh, do I belong here? Instead of just accepting that, ask, wait, what is the evidence that I have that actually for that I don't belong? Most of the time, that evidence is not going to support the conclusion that you don't belong. That moment, right, where you start to separate fact from feeling is where that starts to shift. And that is where you start squashing the imposter syndrome and building your confidence.
Holy cow. That's very powerful and very succinct. I love that.
I think so. For sure, check out Angela Trego. She has her own website. But one thing we didn't talk about today is confidence in presenting, and whether it's you're selling something, maybe it's just selling an initiative to your people leader. But whatever it is, everyone can improve in this area of owning your confidence. And like Matt said earlier, with when he felt like he didn't own a project, his presenting skills were poor. Squashing the imposter syndrome, when you've accomplished that, your presenting skills become better, 100%. You're less nervous, you're more articulate, more brief in your language, and your confidence shows and is felt by those listening.
100% agree. Yes.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Angela, today. Everyone, go check out her book. It's available on Kindle and Amazon, and we'll link to it in our highlight article. Check out her website. And she has a whole host of different resources that you can access as well. So please check it out, connect with her on LinkedIn, and tune in for our next episode. Thanks, Angela.
Yeah, thank you, Angela.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to The Culture Prophet.
If this episode gave you a useful idea, share it with a leader building a better workplace.
Production of The Culture Prophet is sponsored by Mobrium, helping employers to employ feedback into stronger culture and reputation.
Learn more at mobrium.com.
Until next time,
go find one way to prioritize your people and watch your profits grow.